Welcome, deep divers. Ever had one of those moments where you look back at a decision and it just feels, well, weird, almost uncanny? Like maybe you saw some turquoise jewelry, thought it was way too expensive, but then suddenly you just had to buy it.
Right, or maybe you heard that story about the college student.
Oh yeah, the one facing like failing grades.
Exactly, and somehow she spins this wild story about dorm fires and concussions.
And makes her Fs actually look like not such a big deal to her parents. It's amazing.
It really is. It sounds almost like magic, doesn't it? But what's truly fascinating, I think, is how these psychological principles are just so deeply embedded in us, in human behavior.
Okay.
They're like these powerful mental shortcuts, usually helpful, for getting through a complicated world. But they can also leave us surprisingly vulnerable, open to influence.
That's a great point. It feels like beneath our choices, even the ones we think are totally free, there are these invisible forces kind of nudging us towards saying yes. So today, we're taking a deep dive into some really groundbreaking work. A researcher spent years, undercover, embedded with what he called compliance professionals. These are the people whose whole job, their livelihood, depends on getting others to agree.
Think top salespeople, fundraisers, recruiters.
Advertisers too, right?
Absolutely. Anyone whose goal is persuasion.
Our mission today is to unpack 6 fundamental psychological principles that make their tactics work. We'll look at how they're used.
And crucially, how you can start to recognize them.
Exactly, how you can navigate them in your own life. Because honestly, understanding these weapons of automatic influence, as the researcher called them, it feels more critical than ever.
Especially now, yeah. The world's just getting more complex.
We make so many decisions on the fly without really thinking. So let's unpack this. Imagine if you could spot those hidden triggers, the things that make people say yes almost automatically.
That's the goal for today's deep dive.
All right, let's kick things off with one that really, plays tricks on our perception, perceptual contrast. So how does this work? Is it really not about the actual price or value, but more about how it's presented next to something else?
You've basically hit the nail on the head. Our perception of, almost anything, size, price, attractiveness, it can be massively shifted just by comparing it to whatever came immediately before it.
So it changes our reference point.
Exactly. Our brains use these comparisons as shortcuts. It's automatic, especially when we're unsure or don't have time to really analyze things deeply.
And the stories are just pretty wild, like the Arizona shop owner.
Yeah.
The one with the turquoise jewelry.
Oh, yeah, that's a perfect example.
She had this stuff that just wouldn't sell. So she leaves a note for her assistant. Price X a half, cut the price in half.
Right.
But the assistant misreads the messy handwriting. Thinks it says price by 2.
Doubles it.
Doubles the price. And when the owner gets back,
Everything's gone. Sold out.
sold out at twice the original price. Because the vacationers, who didn't know much about turquoise,
They just fell back on that simple stereotype. Expensive equals good. Uncertainty makes us grab for those simple rules.
it's amazing. And then there's that letter. Sharon, the college student.
Oh, Sharon's letter. Yes, that's another brilliant illustration.
She starts with this cascade of disasters, right? Dorm fire, concussion.
Hospital stay, pregnancy, infection, engaged to a gas station attendant. I mean, it just keeps escalating.
Total catastrophe. And only after all that does she drop the real news.
Which was?
A D in American history and an F in chemistry.
So compared to the fire and the pregnancy.
Exactly. Suddenly, failing grades seem almost like a relief.
Minor.
I know. It's like she aced psychology just by writing that letter.
It's pure perceptual contrast. And you see this in retail all the time. Why do salespeople always try to sell you the expensive suit first?
Right. Because after you've mentally committed to, say, a $500 suit,
That $95 sweater or those $70 shoes suddenly seem way less expensive in comparison, almost trivial.
if they showed you the sweater first, the suit would seem even more astronomical.
Precisely. Our brains are just built for comparison. It's efficient, but it means those comparisons can be strategically manipulated.
So something for all of us listening to think about next time we're shopping. Is that price tag looking reasonable on its own, or just compared to the thing they showed us first? Before we say yes.
Worth pausing on.
Okay, let's pivot. Let's talk about a really deep human tendency, one that gets exploited a lot. Reciprocation. The old give and take. And sometimes just take.
Right. And if we zoom out a bit, this rule, this reciprocity thing, it's fundamental. It's like a social lubricant, totally essential for cooperation, for society to even function.
How so?
Well, we're taught from, day one practically, that you have to repay what someone gives you in kind. The social pressure is huge. Nobody wants to be called
I'm a moocher.
a moocher, a freeloader, a welcher, exactly. Those labels sting. So we often feel obligated to repay, even when it's maybe not really in our best interest.
And it doesn't have to be big things, right? I remember reading about that professor who sent Christmas cards.
Oh, the Christmas card study. Yes.
He sent them to total strangers, just a random list.
And was flooded with cards back from people who had absolutely no idea who he was.
They just got a card and boom, automatic reciprocation, like a reflex.
It really is almost mechanical. Take the Coke experiment. Joe, the Confederate in the study.
Mm-hmm.
If he bought a subject a Coke first, just a small kindness, they were more than twice as likely to buy raffle tickets from him later.
Wow, twice as likely, even if they didn't like it.
Even if they explicitly said they didn't like him, the obligation to reciprocate just steamrolled their personal feelings.
You see this everywhere then. Like the Hare Krishnas giving out flowers at airports.
Classic example. They give you an unreturnable gift, maybe a flower or a book, before asking for a donation. Suddenly, you feel indebted.
Or politicians collecting favors over years.
Absolutely. Lyndon Johnson was a master at that. He got legislation passed by calling in chits he'd collected over decades.
Compared to Jimmy Carter, who apparently struggled early on because he campaigned on owing no one.
Exactly. No stored-up obligations to call upon, and it can last for ages. You mentioned Sally Kellerman.
Yeah, the actress. Supported Jerry Brown for president because he helped her move house 20 years earlier.
Incredible, isn't it? The power of that feeling.
And then there are the obvious ones, like free samples in the supermarket.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Amway's Bug, the beauty underglass kits. You use a bit of the sample.
And now you feel kind of obligated to buy the full thing.
Precisely. It creates that sense of debt.
Now, there's a really crafty version of this. Reciprocal concessions, the door-in-the-face technique. How does that one work?
Ah, yes. This is quite clever. You start by making a really large request, something you're pretty sure the other person will reject.
Okay, like asking for a huge donation.
Exactly. Something likely to get a no. Then, after the rejection, you immediately retreat to a smaller, more reasonable request, the one you actually wanted all along.
And why does that work?
Because your retreat is seen as a concession. You gave something up. And the rule of reciprocation kicks in. They feel obligated to make a concession in return.
Which means saying yes to your smaller request.
Bingo. They feel like they should meet you halfway.
I think this happened to me once. A Boy Scout came to the door trying to sell tickets to some event for $5 each.
Okay.
I said, no, thanks. And he immediately said, well, how about buying one of our $1 chocolate bars then?
And did you?
I did. Even though I didn't really want the chocolate.
Yep.
He made a concession, retreating from $5 to $1, so I felt like I had to reciprocate.
That's textbook door in the face. And it works on a much bigger scale, too. Think about Watergate.
Watergate. How does that connect?
G. Gordon Liddy's initial plan for the committee to re-elect the president was outrageous. $1 million budget involving kidnapping, sabotage, call girls. Seriously. It was flatly rejected, of course. Then he came back with a $500,000 plan, also rejected. Finally, he presented the bare-bones $250,000 plan for just the break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters.
The one that actually happened.
The one that actually happened. After the first two insane proposals, the third one, though still completely nuts, seemed like a concession. It seemed relatively sensible by comparison, making it easier to approve, perceptual contrast and reciprocal concession working together.
Wow. And what's really interesting is a study showed this technique doesn't just get people to say yes more often.
Right. It increases follow-through as well. People are more likely to actually do the thing they agreed to.
And even volunteer for more things later. Why?
Because they feel more responsible for the final agreement. They feel like they actively negotiated it down. They won a concession, so they feel more committed to their end of the bargain.
So, defense. How do we handle this when we feel that pressure?
The key is recognition. Mentally relabel that initial gift or that big, unrealistic first request. See it for what it likely is, a setup, a compliance tactic.
Not a genuine favor or concession.
Exactly. Once you identify it as a tactic, the obligation evaporates. You're completely free to say no to the second request without feeling like a heel, without violating the actual spirit of the reciprocity rule. Your obligation isn't to repay a trick.
Okay, that makes sense. Recognize the tactic, diffuse the obligation.
Precisely.
All right, from giving and taking, let's move to the power of sticking with things. Commitment and consistency. Hobgoblins of the mind. This sounds like our past decisions really box us in.
They absolutely can. It's a fascinating and slightly unsettling aspect of our psychology. And it really raises the question, how much of what we think is free will is actually just us trying to stay consistent with who we were yesterday, even if it's not the best path today?
So what's the core principle?
It's this deep-seated, almost obsessive desire we have to be, and just as importantly, to appear consistent with what we've already said or done. Once we make a choice or take a stand on an issue,
We feel this pressure.
immense pressure, yeah, both internally from ourselves and externally from others to behave consistently with that earlier commitment.
And why? Is it just about looking good?
That's part of it. Social image matters, but it's also a huge mental shortcut. Once we've made up our mind about something, consistency allows us to stop thinking about it. We don't have to sift through new information or weigh pros and cons anymore.
We just hit play on our consistency tape.
Exactly. It's efficient. It saves mental energy in a complex world. And, maybe more subtly, it helps us avoid the sometimes uncomfortable, harsh consequences of thought, facing truths that might contradict our past choices.
You see this everywhere, don't you? Like at the racetrack.
Perfect example. People become significantly more confident in their horse's chances of winning after they've placed their bet.
Nothing changed about the horse or the race.
Nope, only their commitment to it. The act of betting solidified their belief.
Or that story about Sarah and Tim.
Ah, yes. Sarah breaks off her engagement to a perfectly nice guy to go back to her ex, Tim, who had issues with alcohol and promises he didn't keep.
Oh.
Even when Tim doesn't change, Sarah becomes more devoted, more convinced she made the right choice. She starts seeing all these new positive qualities in him.
To justify her decision, to stay consistent with that commitment.
Precisely. She's building justifications to make her actions consistent with her choice, even if the reality doesn't quite match up.
Okay, speaking of clever strategies, how do toy manufacturers use this around Christmas? I heard it's kind of sneaky.
It's brilliant in a slightly devious way. So before Christmas, they heavily advertise certain very popular toys, the must-have item.
All right, get the kids excited.
Exactly. But then they deliberately undersupply those specific toys to the stores.
So parents can't find them.
Right. Parents, having already promised the toy to their kid, making a commitment, feel obligated to buy substitute toys to put under the tree.
Okay, makes sense so far.
Then, after Christmas, the company starts running the ads for the original popular toy again.
And the kids see it and say,
You promised. You promised me that one.
oh no. Trapped by consistency.
Exactly. The parents, driven by their earlier promise and the desire to be consistent, often end up going back to the store to buy the originally promised toy, double the sales for the manufacturer.
That's genius.
Yeah.
And terrible. And it works on a smaller scale too, right? Like charity callers.
Uh-huh. Sometimes they start the call with a simple question like, how are you feeling this evening?
Seems innocent enough.
But when you reply, fine, or good, thanks, you've just made a small public commitment to being in a positive state.
Which makes it harder to say no when they ask for a donation right after, because it would seem inconsistent.
Precisely. How can you be feeling fine, but unwilling to help those less fortunate? It creates cognitive dissonance.
And this was used really intensely in the Chinese prisoner of war camps during the Korean War, wasn't it?
Yes, they were masters of leveraging commitment. They'd start incredibly small, get prisoners to agree with minor, seemingly harmless anti-American or pro-communist statements. The United States is not perfect. Who could disagree?
Okay.
Then they'd gradually escalate. Maybe ask them to write it down, then read it in a discussion group, then write a short essay.
Each step building on the last commitment.
Exactly. Each small compliance made the next, larger one feel more consistent. The act of writing it down was found to be particularly powerful in solidifying the commitment internally.
This sounds like the foot of the door technique.
It's the classic example. Get someone to agree to a small initial request, and they become much more likely to agree to a larger related request later.
Like the safe driving signs.
Yeah, the study where homeowners were asked to put a tiny 3-inch square be a safe driver sign in their window. Trivial request, most agreed.
Okay.
A few weeks later, a different volunteer asked the same homeowners to put a huge, poorly lettered, drive carefully billboard on their front lawn.
That's a massive jump.
Huge. But the compliance rate was significantly higher among those who had agreed to the tiny sign first compared to a control group.
Why?
Because that small initial act changed their self-perception. They started seeing themselves as citizens who cooperate with civic causes. The big request then felt consistent with this new self-image.
And interestingly, signing a petition about keeping California beautiful also increased compliance with the ugly driving billboard.
Yes. Even though the topic was different, the act of making that initial small commitment to civic action was enough to change their self-view and make them more compliant later.
Does making the commitment public make it stronger?
Oh, absolutely. The more public a stand, the more reluctant we are to change it. We want to appear consistent to others.
Like people in weight loss clinics announcing their goals publicly.
Exactly. Or the woman who wanted to quit smoking, she wrote out cards promising never to smoke again, signed them, and gave them to everyone important in her life. She used her public image, her pride, as leverage against backsliding.
And what about effort? Does putting more effort into a commitment make it stick better?
Definitely. This is a key reason behind intense initiation ceremonies. Think about primitive tribes with brutal ordeals for young men.
Or college fraternity hazing rituals. They can be awful.
Right. The physical abuse, the embarrassment, the sheer effort involved. It seems counterintuitive, but it actually creates incredibly strong group loyalty and commitment because people think, I wouldn't go through all that for something I didn't truly value. Military boot camps work on a similar principle. The effort justifies the commitment.
But for the commitment to really change someone internally, it can't feel forced, right?
Crucial point. If you feel coerced or if there's a huge bribe involved, you might comply outwardly, but you won't own the commitment inwardly. You'll just attribute your behavior to the pressure or the reward.
So smaller incentives are actually better for real change.
Often, yes. Like the small prizes the Chinese offered for those essays. Just enough to get compliance, but not enough for the prisoners to justify their actions by the prize alone. They had to start believing what they wrote to make sense of their own behavior. It fosters inner responsibility.
Okay, that leads us to a really advanced tactic.
Yeah.
Lowballing. How does that work?
Lowballing is, well, it's pretty sneaky. A compliance professional makes you an initial attractive offer, something that gets you interested, gets you to make a decision, a commitment.
Like a great price on a car.
Exactly. The classic example. You agree to buy the car at this great price. You start filling out forms, maybe imagine driving it home.
Yeah.
You're committed.
Okay.
Then, just before you sign the final papers, something happens. Oops, the salesman forgot to include the cost of the air conditioning. Or the manager disallows the trade-in value he quoted. The original advantage is subtly removed or reduced.
So the deal isn't as good anymore.
Nope. But remarkably often, people still go through with it.
Why? They could just walk away.
Because they've already made the commitment. They've started building justifications for their choice beyond just the initial low price. Maybe they like the salesperson now, or they've mentally taken ownership of the car. The initial commitment grows its own legs, making it resistant even when the original reason is weakened.
Like Sarah staying with Tim even after he broke his promises. Her commitment outlasted the original reason.
Precisely. Or that fuel conservation study families committed to saving fuel, partly because they were told their names would be published in the newspaper.
Right, public recognition.
Then later, the researchers told them, sorry, actually, we can't publish your names. The publicity incentive was removed.
And did they stop saving fuel?
No. They actually saved even more fuel in the following months.
How is it possible?
Because they had internalized the commitment. They started seeing themselves as energy-conscious citizens. The initial external reason, publicity, was gone. But the internal commitment, strengthened by their actions, remained and even grew stronger.
Wow. Okay, this consistency thing is powerful. How do we defend ourselves from being trapped by our own past actions?
It's tricky because consistency is often good. But when it becomes foolish consistency, first, listen to your body, that little knot in your stomach, that gut feeling when you're being pressured to do something that just feels off, even though it aligns with a prior commitment. Pay attention to that. It's often your subconscious warning you.
Your gut knows before your head does.
Often, yes. The second defense is to ask yourself what the author calls the crucial question. Step back mentally and ask, knowing what I know now about the real situation, the true costs, if I could go back in time, would I make this same commitment again?
And trust that immediate first feeling.
Yes. That gut-level answer before you start rationalizing based on consistency is often the most honest one. If the answer is no, then recognize that the current pressure is likely based on maintaining consistency, not on the merits of the choice itself.
And finally,
Mentally separate the commitment from the current reality. Tell the person exploiting your consistency, look, that was then, this is now. Based on the current information, this doesn't make sense. Don't let past statements lock you into future foolishness. Your commitment should be to making good decisions, not just consistent ones.
okay, good advice.
Yeah.
From our internal drive for consistency, let's shift to looking outwards, to the crowd. Social proof. This sounds like when we're unsure, we kind of outsource our decisions to others.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
But the danger is, sometimes the crowd is just as clueless as we are, or even worse, wrong.
Absolutely. That's the real risk here. The principle itself is simple. We figure out what's correct behavior, what's the right thing to do, by looking at what other people are doing.
If lots of people are doing it, it must be right.
That's the assumption. And honestly, most of the time, it's a pretty good shortcut. Following the crowd usually leads to fewer mistakes. It's efficient, saves us from having to figure everything out ourselves.
But it's exploited all the time, like canned laughter on TV sitcoms.
Oh, the laugh track. It drives people crazy. They know it's fake.
But it works.
Research shows it does. Audiences demonstrably laugh longer and rate shows as funnier when there's a laugh track, even a really obvious poor quality one. Our brains just respond to that signal of other people find this funny.
And this works with kids too, right? Changing behavior.
Definitely. Studies showed children with a fear of dogs could overcome it just by watching videos of other kids playing happily with dogs for about 20 minutes a day.
Wow.
Similarly, socially withdrawn preschoolers became much more interactive after watching a film showing other kids joining in activities and having fun. The key seems to be seeing similar others doing the desired behavior.
Okay, so similar others is important. What are the conditions where social proof becomes really powerful or even dangerous? Uncertainty seems key.
Huge factor. When we're unsure about a situation, when things are ambiguous, that's when we're most likely to look to others for cues on how to act.
And this leads to that disturbing phenomenon, pluralistic ignorance.
Yes. That's where everyone in a group privately disagrees with something, but assumes incorrectly that most other people accept it, so they go along with the crowd. It often fuels the bystander effect.
The Catherine Genovese case is the famous example, right? Murdered over 30 minutes while dozens of neighbors supposedly heard or saw something but didn't call the police.
Exactly. In ambiguous emergencies, is that person on the sidewalk drunk or having a stroke? Is that smoke under the door serious? People tend to look around. If everyone else looks calm, unconcerned.
They assume it must not be an emergency, even if internally they feel worried.
Precisely. Everyone's looking at everyone else for cues, and since everyone is trying to appear calm, the situation gets defined as a non-emergency. This is especially true in cities, among strangers, where people are less likely to interact directly.
So critically, if you're the one needing help in a crowd,
You have to break through that ambiguity. Don't just yell, help. Point directly at one person. You, sir, in the blue jacket, I need help. Call an ambulance.
isolate someone, make it personal.
Yes. That removes the diffusion of responsibility and the uncertainty. It tells that specific person what to do.
Okay, so uncertainty is one factor. The other you mentioned was similarity. Social proof works best when it's from people like us.
Extremely powerful. Remember the lost wallet study? Researchers dropped wallets in various locations.
Wow.
Some wallets contained a letter seemingly written by a previous finder indicating their intention to return it. The key variable was the language used in the letter. Sometimes it sounded like it was written by an average American, sometimes like it was written by a recent immigrant with poorer English.
And what happened?
Wallets were returned significantly more often when the letter writer seemed similar to the average person likely to find the wallet. People followed the lead of someone they perceive as like them.
Wow. And your colleague's son, Chris, learning to swim.
Oh, yeah, that was a great personal lesson for him. Chris was 3, terrified of swimming without his inflatable ring. Months of lessons, parental encouragement, nothing worked.
Then what?
Then one day at the pool, he saw another 3-year-old boy, Tommy, swimming happily without a ring. Chris watched him for a bit, then took off his own ring and swam straight over to his dad.
Just like that. Why the sudden change?
Because Tommy was similar. As Chris explained it later, if a boy like me can do it, I can do it too. The example of a peer was far more powerful than any adult instruction.
This similarity factor also has a really dark side, though, doesn't it? The Werther effect. Copycat suicides.
Yes, unfortunately, it's well documented. When a suicide story gets heavy media publicity, especially front page coverage,
There's a spike in suicides afterwards.
Yes, and often a spike in single-car crashes and private plane crashes, too, which are suspected to often be disguised suicides. The data shows a clear correlation in the weeks following the publicized story.
And the similarity factor comes in how?
The effect is strongest among people who are similar to the person in the publicized suicide story. If a young person's suicide is highly publicized, the subsequent increase in suicides and accidents is primarily among other young people. Same for older people. Troubled individuals seem to imitate the tragic actions of those they perceive as peers.
That's chilling. And this relates to Jonestown, too, the mass suicide.
The isolation of the People's Temple community in Guyana was extreme. They were cut off from outside influences. Their only reference point for behavior, their only similar others, were the other cult members.
So social proof within the group became massively amplified.
Hugely amplified. In that environment of uncertainty and perceived similarity, following the crowd, even into mass suicide, became the path of least resistance, the correct behavior according to their isolated social proof.
Okay, so given how powerful and sometimes misleading social proof can be, how do we defend ourselves?
Two main things. First, develop a sensitivity to obviously fake social proof. Canned laughter, staged testimonials, real people, not actors, who clearly are actors, bartenders putting their own money in the tip jar first thing.
Those are little tricks to make something seem popular or endorsed.
Right. When you spot these clear attempts to manipulate social proof, recognize them for what they are, and maybe even push back. Don't reward the tactic. Boycott the product, leave the bar, be critical.
And the second defense.
Don't just rely on social proof, especially in important decisions. Take a moment to glance around at the objective facts, check against your own experiences, use your own judgment. Remember the drivers blindly following each other off the road because the first car did?
Yeah.
Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't automatically make it right. Look up, check the map, engage your own brain before just following the herd.
Good advice. Okay, next up, a principle that feels very intuitive but has layers. Liking.
Liking. This really underscores how much our decisions are driven by emotion, not just logic. Our connections with people, even really superficial ones, can heavily influence whether we say yes or no, often without us even realizing it.
The basic idea is simple. We're more likely to agree to requests from people we know and like.
Exactly. Seems obvious, right?
But the classic example shows how powerful it is. The Tupperware party.
Oh, yeah. The genius of the Tupperware party isn't the sales pitch from the demonstrator. It's that you're buying the product from your friend, the hostess, who gets a cut of the profits.
So saying no feels like rejecting your friend.
Precisely. The social bond, the liking for the hostess, often becomes more important than whether you actually need more plastic containers. It leverages friendship.
And that's similar to the endless chain method in sales.
Very similar. Companies like Shockley train salespeople to ask satisfied customers for names of friends who might also like the product. Then they approach the new prospect saying, "Your friend, James Smith, suggested I give you a call."
Again, making it harder to say no because it feels connected to your friend.
Right. It wraps the sales request in the warmth of an existing relationship. And then you have people like Joe Girard.
The world's greatest car salesman.
That's him. Guinness Book of World Records, sold an incredible number of Chevrolets. His main tactic.
Regards.
Every single month, he sent a holiday card to his entire customer list, over 13,000 people. And the message inside was always the same simple line, "I like you."
That's it. I like you.
That was the core message. He believed that building that feeling of being liked was the absolute key to his success. People buy from people they like.
Okay, so what makes us like someone? And how are those factors exploited? Physical attractiveness seems like a big one.
It is, unfortunately. There's a well-documented halo effect. Good-looking people are automatically assumed to have other positive traits. They're seen as smarter, kinder, more honest, more talented.
Even there's no evidence for it.
Even with no evidence. It's an unconscious bias. Attractive political candidates get more votes. Attractive defendants often get lighter sentences. And yes, attractive salespeople and con artists definitely benefit from this effect.
What about similarity? We like people who are like us.
Huge factor. We're drawn to people who share our opinions, personality traits, background, even things like the way they dress or their name.
Like the experiment where researchers asked students for a dime for a phone call.
Exactly. They got significantly more compliance when they were dressed similarly to the student. They were asking hippie clothes for hippie students, straight clothes for straight students. Salespeople are often trained to subtly mirror and match a customer's posture, mood, even their speech patterns to build rapport through similarity.
And compliments. Do they really work, even if they seem kind of obvious?
They do. We have a fundamental craving for praise, and we tend to automatically like people who provide it. Joe Girard's I like you cards are basically mass-produced compliments, and they work wonders for him. Even inaccurate flattery can be effective.
What about contact and cooperation? Does just being around someone make us like them more?
Generally, yes. Familiarity tends to breed liking. We even prefer the way our own faces look in a mirror image, because that's the version we're most familiar with. This familiarity principle helps explain why candidates with familiar-sounding names often do well in elections.
But contact isn't always positive, right? Like in newly desegregated schools.
That's a critical distinction. If the contact involves frustration, conflict, or competition, it can actually increase dislike. Early school desegregation efforts sometimes backfired because they threw kids into intense competition.
Which led to things like the jigsaw classroom.
Exactly. Elliot Aronson developed the jigsaw method where students have to cooperate to succeed. Each student in a group gets only one piece of the information needed to complete a task or study for a test. They have to teach their pieces to each other.
So they depend on each other.
Yes. This forced cooperation, aimed at a common goal, dramatically reduced prejudice and increased cross-ethnic friendships and improved academic performance. It shows how positive, cooperative contact builds liking.
Okay, then there's conditioning and association. Linking people or products to positive things.
Right. We develop positive feelings towards things associated with positive experiences. The luncheon technique study showed people became fonder of political statements they read while they were eating.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Just because they were eating?
Seems so. The pleasant feelings from the food got associated with the statements. This is the whole basis for celebrity endorsements.
Associating the product with a liked celebrity.
Or using attractive models in car ads. The positive vibes transfer, but it works negatively too. We tend to dislike people who bring us bad news, the kill the messenger syndrome. Weathermen get hate mail for predicting bad weather.
And sports fans.
Ah.
Basking in reflected glory.
Burgeoning, yeah. When their team wins, fans say, "We won!" They want to associate themselves with the success. But when the team loses, it's suddenly, they lost. They distance themselves from the failure. It's all about managing associations to boost self-esteem.
And finally, the classic interrogation tactic. Good cop, bad cop. How does liking play in there?
It's a perfect manipulation of liking through contrast and reciprocity. The bad cop is hostile, threatening. Then the good cop steps in, seems kind, understanding, maybe offers a cigarette or coffee.
Seems like a savior compared to the bad cop.
Exactly. The suspect develops a rapid sense of liking and trust towards the good cop, seeing them as an ally against the bad cop. This makes them much more likely to confess or provide information to the friend they've found in the good cop.
So defending against the liking rule. It sounds like we need to be aware of developing feelings too quickly.
That's the core of it. Be alert to that feeling. Wow, I really like this person, especially if you've only just met them in a compliance situation. Ask yourself why you like them so much, so fast. Are they using similarity? Compliments, association.
And once you recognize that potential manipulation.
The key is to mentally separate the requester from the request. Make a conscious effort to evaluate the deal, the product, the proposal strictly on its own merits. Don't let your positive feelings for the charming salesperson sway your judgment about the actual offer, because you'll live with the offer, not the salesperson.
Separate the person from the deal. Got it. Okay. Moving on to a heavyweight, authority. Directed deference. This sounds really fundamental, like we're almost programmed to obey authority.
It often feels that way. And it suggests that this power is so ingrained it can become almost automatic, potentially leading us down paths we'd consciously reject if we stop to think.
So what's the principle?
It's our deep-seated, culturally ingrained willingness to obey figures perceived as having authority, even when their commands seem questionable or potentially harmful.
And this comes from
Societal training, mostly. From childhood, we're taught that obeying parents, teachers, police officers, bosses is generally beneficial. Authority figures usually do have more knowledge, wisdom, or power. Following them is often an efficient shortcut. They often control rewards and punishments, too.
But the Milgram experiment showed the terrifying downside.
The absolute chilling demonstration, yes. Ordinary people, assigned the role of teacher, were willing to administer what they believed were increasingly severe, potentially lethal electric shocks to another person, the learner.
Just because a guy in a lab coat told him to?
Simply because an experimenter representing scientific authority calmly instructed them to continue as part of the experiment. Around 2/3 of participants went all the way to the highest voltage, despite the learner's screams and eventual silence. It showed a staggering level of obedience to perceived authority.
And this isn't just in labs. It happens in real life, like in hospitals with medication errors.
Absolutely. Studies have shown alarmingly high rates of errors simply because nurses automatically deferred to a doctor's orders without questioning, even when the order was clearly wrong or dangerous.
Like putting eardrops in the rectum because the prescription said place in our ear.
Exactly, that actually happened. Or administering blatantly excessive drug doses. The nurse's critical thinking gets overridden by the ingrained habit of obeying the doctor's authority.
And it's not always real authority that gets us, is it? Sometimes it's just the symbols of authority.
Crucial point. We're often swayed by the mere appearance, the trappings of authority, not necessarily the substance. Titles are a prime example.
Like doctor or professor.
Yes.
Yeah.
One professor noted how people treated him completely differently, more respectfully, less argumentatively the moment they learned his title. Studies have even shown that people perceive individuals with prestigious titles as being physically taller.
No way.
It's true. The title inflates their perceived stature. Clothes are another powerful symbol. Uniforms, like police or security guards, command instant deference. Even a well-tailored business suit can convey authority and increase compliance. Con artists know and use this all the time.
And trappings, like fancy cars.
Definitely. Jewelry, expensive cars, they signal status and authority. One study found motorists waited significantly longer before honking at a luxury car stopped at a green light compared to an economy car. They showed more deference to the symbol of wealth and status.
So, faced with this powerful, often automatic deference, how do we defend ourselves? How do we know when to obey and when to question?
2 key questions to ask yourself. First, is this authority truly an expert? Is their expertise genuinely relevant to this specific situation?
Like the actor Robert Young selling Sanka coffee.
Perfect example. He played the beloved Dr. Marcus Welby on TV, so he projected medical authority. But he was an actor, not a doctor, and certainly not an expert on coffee. People were swayed by his perceived authority in an unrelated domain.
Okay, so check relevance. What's the second question?
How truthful can we expect this expert to be? Are they likely to be impartial? Or do they have something to gain by our compliance?
Look for hidden motives.
Exactly. Be aware that compliance professionals sometimes use a tactic where they seem to argue slightly against their own interest initially, like a waiter recommending a slightly cheaper dish than the one you first considered.
Why would they do that?
To establish trustworthiness. It makes them seem honest, like they have your best interests at heart once they've built that credibility.
They can leverage it for bigger requests later, like recommending an expensive bottle of wine.
Precisely. They use a small demonstration of honesty to gain your trust, making their authority seem more legitimate and persuasive. So assess both their expertise and their trustworthiness before automatically complying.
Good points. Okay, our final principle, and it feels really primal, scarcity. The rule of the few.
Scarcity. This taps into something very deep within us, the drive to protect our freedoms, our access to things. But, like the others, this instinct can be weaponized, pushing us to desire things irrationally, often ignoring their actual value.
So the basic idea is simple. Things seem more valuable when they're hard to get.
Exactly. Opportunities, items, information, they all seem more desirable when their availability is limited, or, crucially, when they are becoming less available.
And why is it so powerful? Is it just that we assume rare things are better quality?
That's part of it, yeah. It's another mental shortcut. If it's hard to get, it must be good. But there's a deeper, more powerful psychological force at play called psychological reactance.
Reactance.
It's our reaction against things that limit our freedoms. We hate losing options we already have or think we should have. When something becomes scarce, our freedom to possess it is threatened, and we react by wanting it more.
That explains the terrible twos. When a toddler ignores a room full of toys but throws a tantrum for the one toy that's put out of reach.
Textbook reactance. The restriction itself creates the desire. It also explains the Romeo and Juliet effect.
Where parental opposition actually makes a teenage romance more intense.
Precisely. The interference threatens the teenager's freedom to choose their own partner, so they react by becoming more committed, finding the forbidden love even more appealing.
That makes so much sense. And compliance professionals use scarcity tactics all the time.
Constantly. You see limited number tactics, this is the last one in stock, or only a few left at this price.
Creates urgency.
And deadline tactics. Sale ends Tuesday. Or the salesperson who says, I can only offer you this deal today, I can't come back later. It forces an immediate decision under the pressure of impending loss.
Boiler room stock scams use this too, right? Creating fake urgency for worthless investment.
Classic scarcity pressure. High-pressure tactics emphasizing a limited time opportunity for huge gains.
I even felt this myself once. There's a Mormon temple near where I live. Never had any interest in going inside. Then I read an article saying a specific part, normally closed to non-members, was being open for public tours for just a few days before being restricted again.
And suddenly,
I felt this intense urge to go see it. Something I had zero interest in became incredibly appealing purely because my opportunity to access it was about to disappear.
it's a powerful demonstration. And this applies to information, too. Banned information becomes more desirable.
Like censorship backfiring.
Exactly. When students were told a speech arguing against co-ed dorms was banned, they became more opposed to co-ed dorms even without hearing the speech. They valued the restricted information more and assumed it must be persuasive.
Like jurors being told to disregard inadmissible evidence.
Studies show they often give that specific piece of evidence more weight. Banning it makes it seem more important. And remember the phosphate detergent ban in Florida.
Oh yeah, people started smuggling and hoarding phosphate detergents.
And not only that, they started rating those detergents as better products, gentler, more effective than they had before the ban. Scarcity didn't just increase desire, it actually changed their perception of the product's quality.
Incredible. So what makes scarcity most powerful? Are there optimal conditions?
Yes. Two conditions really amplify the effect. First is newly experienced scarcity. Things that have recently become scarce are valued more highly than things that have always been scarce.
So losing something feels worse than never having had it.
Essentially, yes. Think about cookies in an experiment. Participants valued cookies more when they were taken away from an abundant supply down to just 2, compared to participants who only ever saw 2 cookies from the start. This also applies societally.
Like revolutions.
Political scientist James C. Davies argued that revolutions are most likely not when conditions are consistently terrible, but after a period of improving economic and social conditions is followed by a sharp reversal. Freedoms or benefits recently gained and then suddenly lost are the most intensely desired and fought for. Think about the civil rights movement gaining momentum after some progress was followed by setbacks.
Okay, so new scarcity is potent. What's the second supercharger?
Competition. When we have to compete with others for scarce resources, that's when scarcity fever really takes hold.
Like my brother Richard selling used cars. He used this brilliantly.
How so?
He'd sometimes schedule 2 potential buyers to see the same car at the same time. The first buyer might be hesitant, wanting to think about it. But as soon as the second interested buyer showed up, the dynamic changed instantly. Suddenly, it was a competition. The first buyer often made an immediate decision, usually at Richard's asking price, just to avoid losing the car to the rival.
Classic competition for a scarce resource. It creates urgency and bypasses rational thought. Fishermen do this by throwing chum into the water to create a feeding frenzy, then drop unbaited hooks. Department stores use loss leaders super cheap scarce items to draw a crowd, knowing the competitive atmosphere will lead to other impulse buys.
And that crazy TV auction for the Poseidon Adventure.
Oh, 1973. Barry Diller at ABC paid a then unheard of $3.3 million for a single showing. Far more than previous movies. Why? Because it was the first time the networks engaged in an open bid auction for a movie.
The competition drove the price sky high.
Exactly. His rival later admitted the fever of the thing caught us. The scarcity combined with direct public competition created an irrational bidding war.
Okay, so scarcity, especially new scarcity plus competition, is incredibly potent. How do we defend ourselves when we feel that panicky must-have-it-now feeling?
The first step is recognizing that internal arousal. When you feel that frantic, panicky, emotionally charged rush in a compliant situation involving scarcity, that feeling itself is your red flag.
Use the emotion as a signal.
Yes. Use it as a cue to stop. Calm down. Take a breath. Rational thought flies out the window during a scarcity frenzy. That emotional surge is your warning sign to disengage momentarily.
Okay, calm down. Now what?
Now, ask yourself the critical question. Why do I want this thing? Is it for its utility, its function? Do I want to drive it, drink it, wear it, listen to it? Or is the main appeal simply the fact that it's scarce, the desire to possess something rare or forbidden?
Distinguish between wanting the item itself versus wanting it because it's hard to get.
Precisely. If you want it primarily for its function, remember, the fact that it's scarce doesn't make it drive better, taste better, or sound better. Its utility hasn't changed just because fewer people can get it. Separate the genuine merit of the item from the emotional rush caused by its scarcity.
That's a really useful distinction. Focus on utility, not just possession.
It helps short-circuit the irrational pull of scarcity alone.
So we've covered a lot today. This deep dive has really unpacked the often hidden influence of these 6 principles. Perceptual contrast,
Reciprocation,
commitment, and consistency.
social proof,
Mikey.
and scarcity.
It's fascinating how they work.
And it's important to remember, these principles aren't inherently bad. They are essentially mental shortcuts, heuristics that generally serve us well. They help us navigate an incredibly complex world, make quick decisions.
Save mental energy.
Exactly. They're usually efficient and helpful. The problem arises because their automatic, shortcut nature makes them exploitable.
Right. So the real issue, the true enemy here, isn't the principles themselves. It's the people who exploit them unfairly.
Precisely. Those who falsify the triggers, who counterfeit the evidence, who misrepresent the situation to activate these shortcuts for their own profit, often against our best interests, they hijack our own mental wiring.
They pollute the reliability of our shortcuts.
That's a great way to put it. And that's why vigilance is important.
So we encourage you, our listeners, to be aware. If you spot obviously fake social proof or feel pressured by a manufactured commitment or sense that wave of undue liking washing over you,
Recognize it. You have the right, even the responsibility, to push back. Refuse to be swayed by the tactic itself. Write letters, boycott products, call out manipulation when you see it.
we need to protect the integrity of these shortcuts because we rely on them every day.
Absolutely. Their trustworthiness is valuable.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. The next time you find yourself on the verge of saying yes, especially if it feels a bit rushed or emotional, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, are you truly choosing freely? Or are you maybe dancing to a tune pledged by a hidden master of influence? How much of that yes is really truly yours?
It's worth reflecting on. Observe these principles operating in the world around you, in advertising, in politics, in your own interactions. Once you start looking for them, you'll see them everywhere.
And that awareness, as you said, is the first best line of defense.
Definitely.
We hope this deep dive has given you some powerful tools, a new lens to see the world of persuasion. Until next time, stay curious.
And keep diving deep.